everyone, and welcome to Cellular Healing TV. I'm your host, Meredith Dykstra, and this is episode number 194. We have our resident cellular healing specialist, Dr. Dan Pompa, on the line, and today we welcome a very special guest, and her name is Christine Clarenbach, and she has quite a story to share on Cellular Healing TV, which this really speaks to so many of the different strategies that the Dr. Pompa uses to help people get their lives back. So I know Christine is just willing to share her story to inspire so many of you who are listening and watching, just to share tools and ways to get your health back on track. So before we dive in, let me tell you a little bit more about Christine. At a young age, Christine endured both physical and emotional trauma that has led her to a lifetime of searching for a solution. With multiple illnesses ranging from the after effects of being poisoned as a child, toxicity from breast implant surgery, Lyme disease, and much more. She spent years seeing several medical doctors and naturopaths, along with many other practitioners, yet her health was still declining. Throughout her search for health, Christine pursued certification in both massage therapy and biomagnetic hair therapy. And later in life, still not having an answer, Christine stumbled across a video of Dr. Pompa and quickly became his client. Her passion to find an answer has led her to become a platinum practitioner with Health Centers of the Future and is owner of Altum Ray Disease, where she is dedicated to helping others reclaim their lives. So welcome to Cellular Healing TV, Christine. We're so excited to have you here and for you to share your story.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Well, I couldn't wait to bring our viewers and listeners your story. You are a cellular healing doctor now, so we are from pain to purpose, no doubt about it. I just said before we got on the show, my gosh, you transformed even the way you look just since you and I started working together. But what a story you have. If I want people to get anything out of this story, number one, it's you have to get upstream to the cause. Because you did everything. You did everything. You ate perfect. I mean, I can go through the list and you still weren't well. You and I together started uncovering a lot of these hidden stressors, physical, chemical, and emotional. And as we uncovered these things, as we addressed these things, life started to get a little better. We're not there yet. Because, matter of fact, I noticed this, people never want to give their story or their testimony until they're like completely on the other side. It's completely foolish because by then, number one, you forget a lot of the journey. Mm-hmm. And no doubt you have come a massive long way, and I can't wait for people to hear this. So let's start in, okay? We mentioned breast implants, and you had wisdom teeth out, which we found cavitations. You had amalgams. You had mercury. So, and then you had a massive emotional stuff too that needed dished out. So you can start where you want, but let's get them to understand where you came from.
Okay. So yes, so from a very young age, I was challenged because at age 3, I actually was hospitalized for unknown reasons. It's been kept a secret from me all these years, and I still don't know what happened. I spent a week in the hospital, and I, once again, don't know what happened. So,
and I'll just say this on your behalf. There's an amazing emotional trauma even with that, because there's suspect that maybe a loved one was part of that, and you actually were poisoned, and that's why you ended up in the hospital. And just so people can know that that's how emotional that actually was. If a loved one poisons somebody, you end up in the hospital, or poisoned you, imagine those emotional scars. But anyways.
Right. So I was actually poisoned at age 7. So 3 was another mystery, and I could have been poisoned then too. I'm not really sure. But then age 7 I was, and I actually did die 3 times. And it's kind of mind boggling to me because I always wondered why I was still here. And it's kind of a weird story around that. I don't think I've shared this with you, Dr. Pompa, but this is a real emotional piece for me. And I had started seeing a natural doctor, and he was kind of going through all the questions with me. And one of the things he said to me was, "So what do you like to eat?" And I was like, "Well, I guess anything, And he goes, "No, what's your favorite food?" And I had no answer for him. I said, I could give or take food. It's not really that important to me. I eat because I have to. And he looked at me and he said, well, dead people don't eat. And it really kind of like made me stop and think about it, because I was like, wow, that's really crazy. So for the longest time, I tried to figure out what I really like to eat. And it was really, really hard for me. That was a real emotional break for me, because it made me think about, wow, I really don't care for food. And it was really just eat to survive kind of thing. So he went on and on about explaining to me about that. And he was a shaman as well, and he could read me very clearly. And that was really an interesting part for me. And so since then, I can tell you that I love to eat. Since I found True Cellular Detox and the ketogenic diet, and breaking through that piece of emotion for me, it was a while after that when I finally broke through that and realized what he said for me to do is, he said I needed to talk to my little Christine, my 7-year-old Christine that died, because you need to connect with her and you need to tell her that she's safe and nobody can ever hurt her again. So that's kind of what I did every day for a long time. And I still do it, because I think reconnecting with her, he told me she was angry with me because I made her live. She didn't want to live because of the trauma. So that was a huge, I mean, the emotional piece, I think, was probably the biggest challenge for me in all of this. And I really want people to understand that, because I meet people all the time who don't think the emotional piece is important. They don't think that emotions have anything to do with being ill.
Right. So
and
true.
It's huge. It was a huge piece for me. And I've been through a lot of different therapies for that. And the T3 emotion code really, really was probably the best for me, because it gets really deep into your childhood. And I was really emotionally a wreck going through that. Ups and downs, anger, resentment, hate, all of it was coming out, and I was exhausted and I didn't know what was happening to me. But when I got to the other side, I realized, wow, I just released a lot of stuff. So the emotional piece is huge.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I continued on, and into my early teens, I was diagnosed with a borderline muscle weakness disease. And I was an athlete, and they knew something wasn't right. So they did testing, and they told me I was borderline for a muscle disease, which was traumatizing in itself, because I love sports and I did very well at sports, but I always was exhausted. I soon after that, I think I was 19, I had a car accident and I got whiplash, broke my front tooth, I screwed up my jaw, had to go through jaw surgery after nose surgery, because they told me it was my sinuses. They actually put me on antibiotics for a year. They kept telling me my headaches were from sinus infections, which wasn't the case at all. It was from my jaw causing the headaches. So they put me through the nose surgery, and then a year later, I ended up having to go through the jaw surgery, because I could hardly, it's like the scar tissue was built up so bad between my disc and my joint that I could hardly open my mouth.
Oh, wow.
So they went in and scraped it all out, and it's gotten better. It's definitely better. Soon after that, I think I was in my early 30s when I was told I had Lyme's disease. And I don't ever remember getting bit by a tick, but I probably did and didn't even realize it. And then I had my fillings removed. I had several fillings. I think I might have had like 7 or 8 fillings. And at that time, I had 3 root canals, because I had a root canal in the front from my car accident and 2 on the side from just teeth that broke. So I had all of those removed. And then I also had breast implants in my 30s, which soon became toxic. And that was huge, because I could never figure out why I couldn't get well no matter what I did. And after I had all the amalgams removed, my dentist sent me to this doctor that was part of their group. And she told me I had to go to this spa. And it's an Ayurvedic spa. And she said, if you go to the spa and you have a week's worth of, it was 5 hours a day of herbal treatments and hot oil treatments that I had to do. And I was on board with anything. So I signed up and I went, and she said, if you do this, all of these heavy metals and toxins will be out of you and you'll be like new. Well,
I wish it was so easy.
You tell me
I wish it were so easy.
I'm going, you know? So I went, and at the end of the week, I was like, God, I feel a little bit better. But within less than a week from that, I was sicker than I'd ever been. I was so sick. So, you know, at that point, I really just was like, I wanted to give up because it was just too much. And I felt like I had tried everything, but obviously I hadn't. So I continued on my journey and ended up, you know, finding different things that I kept trying, and I'd get a little relief. And the thing is all these people were detoxing me, as you know, and they weren't doing it right. And I'd get a little bit of relief, and then I'd get sicker, and then I'd get a little relief, and then I'd get sicker. So, so at that point, I finally, I think it was, how many years after that? I think it's 6 years after that I found you. And I started watching your podcast. Somebody sent me your video, and I really became obsessed because I knew by listening to you, I just resonated with you, and I knew you had the answer. And it all made sense that you had to go upstream, and you had to get to the cell, and you had to have the right binders. And that was key, the binders and going upstream, you know, to the brain and to the cells. So, you know, that's when I watched all your videos. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then I ended up hiring you to be my coach. And I knew I needed you to get me through those breast implants coming out, because I didn't want to be on all those antifungals and antibiotics and pain meds. I mean, these women were on so many medications that they weren't getting better. They were only getting worse after their implants came out.
Yeah.
So
let's stop there for a moment, because as Meredith pointed out before we started recording, is, you know, we really haven't spoken a lot about that. And I'll let you speak to it, but there's a few problems. Number one, these things end up moldy. Number two, they all leach, is what new studies are showing. And they actually even have heavy metals. There was a couple articles, even in some papers, you know, that came out about, you know, how toxic these things are. And I find that we have autoimmune that never clears up. It's literally, you know, these breast implants are an upstream source. So talk about that, and talk about what happened even after they were removed, because you had some rashes that were even in that area, but talk about it.
Yeah. So I did have mold growing in one of the implants, in the valve where they actually fill the breast implant after they put it into you. So I had that, and then I had mold floating inside the breast implant as well. And I used to have rashes across my chest constantly, down on my stomach, and I never knew what it was. I had no idea. And then after they were removed, it got worse. And there's like 37 different chemicals just in the breast implant. That's not including, you know, the saline or the actual silicone that's inside breast implants. I had the saline, but there were still 37 neurotoxic, you know, toxins inside of it.
People are told, oh, it's just saline. No, it's just saline and 37 other chemicals, and, you know, some of which are heavy metals.
Exactly. So I literally, for probably a month and a half, 2 months after having them removed, I stunk so bad. Like,
yeah, I remember.
My armpits, I could get in the shower and I could clean and scrub, and I'd get out and I'd still stink. And it smelled like medical, like chemical. It was really disgusting. So I knew that I was pulling this stuff out, and I was taking a lot of binders to bind it, and a lot of cytodetox, and it was crazy. It was just crazy. I just feel so blessed that I found you and got these things out, because I had no idea that these things were festering inside of me and just making me sicker and sicker.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I always say, if you're not getting well, there's still something upstream you're missing, right? Okay, that may seem like the obvious, but there's many people watching this going, oh my gosh, really? These things are toxic? They don't bother me. I don't have rashes like she had. Well, let me tell you, they all leach. They all leach these chemicals, and it's a strain on the immune system. No doubt, big mistake. But again, we prepared you going into it. We did things after it to make it successful. But talk about some of these big hidden dangers, right? I mean, you are the poster girl for every hidden stressor. I mean, you are. And, we have been uncut from the emotional stuff, to the breast implants. Okay, let's talk mouth now. Walk us through this because, there's a lot of recent finds here, but talk us through it. Of course, you had amalgams, got those removed, and I'll just point this out. Everyone takes amalgams, well, not everyone. When people take amalgams out, they think, well, I've done that. Meanwhile, that mercury vaporized into the brain, and there is the trapped inorganic mercury that will be there for your lifetime, only to cause problems in your 60s and 70s, later on in life, wherever it lodges in what parts of the brain determines what symptoms it causes and what diseases. But the bottom line is amalgam's gone, inorganic mercury still loaded in the brain. Of course, we're going after that in you now, but talk about some of the dental pitfalls.
So I did find a biological dentist when I wanted to have all my amalgams removed. And I went to him and not only did I have my amalgams removed, I had all of my root canals removed. And I don't know how many years after that, maybe 6, 7 years after that, for at least the last 6 years, I've been going back to this dentist saying my teeth hurt. My gums are shrinking. I don't know what's wrong. And where he pulled out these root canals on both sides of my jaw, the bone just kept shrinking more and more and more. And every time I went to him, he would tell me basically that my teeth were fine. He doesn't understand what my problem is. And this went on and on and on. And he basically treated me like I was crazy. And I think he convinced my husband I was crazy. My husband stopped going to the dentist with me. He's like, I'm not going anymore because I know he's going to tell you you're fine. So through Dr. Pompa, I found a new dentist in New York. And I went and saw him and he was mortified. He said that I had plastic fillings. So when they removed the mercury, they put plastic fillings in my mouth, told me it was a safe material. And every single one of those fillings were cracked and food was leaching in underneath all of those fillings. And I had cavities underneath every single tooth that they had put fillings in. So the new dentist had to replace every single one of those cavities, or should I say fillings, with new material. And he literally had to drill so much of my teeth because the cavities were so bad. In fact, one of them, I ended up losing one of those teeth because it was so bad, it was infected.
Yeah.
So, and then on the bottom where all the bone's missing, he told me the dentist, the way they removed those teeth, they took way too much of the bone out. And that's why I have these really deep pockets now where there's no bone. So that was just devastating for me. So I'm still working on having this done. And, the bummer part is that this guy is listed as a biological dentist. And I trusted him. And he basically took advantage of the fact and just gave me plastic fillings and ripped out all my bone on both sides. And so now I'm having to have it all repaired. And this dentist in New York is working with me, and I've got a few more visits. I've been there 4 times this summer, and I don't know how many more times I'm going to have to go back.
Hidden infection is devastating. And again, where you had most of those infections, you had no pain. And you would have had no way of knowing. I mean, honestly, it's, I tell you, there's so many people who are still sick. Root canals are always infected. That's why you took them out, but evidently he didn't decavitate underneath it well enough. So more infection was there. Mm-hmm. I tell you, we say 75 to 85% of all disease starts in the mouth. I'm telling you, these, hidden places. Now, did you have your, where you had your wisdom teeth extracted? Did you have them look for cavitation there? Did they find any infection there?
They did a 3D scan, X-ray scan on me, and he says there's none there. So that was a gift.
Yeah. Well, you had enough of it, and
Right?
I'll tell you one of the things that I know when I got my infections out, honestly, it's like they almost moved from one place to the next as that was getting. I mean, that's how clever these things are. I've told the story on past ones, but they went and decavitated one area, and it was under a tooth where infection was getting. It was a partly impacted wisdom tooth. It ran up to a place where I had a cavitation, probably less. It was a more mild cavitation, but went in there and I had severe pain. I thought I was going to die, literally. But I mean, my head was coming off. But I mean, these infections, I mean, it's another reason why people can't fix their gut. It's like you'll never fix your gut. If you have silver fillings leaching mercury into it, forget it. If you have these infections, dropping infection in there, knocking your immune system down, you're never going to fix your gut either. And not to mention, these infections are going systemic. Completely driving inflammation and autoimmune. So yeah, I mean that's obviously part of what you've been working on now, right? I mean just getting those things straightened out. So what other hidden stressors did you find along the way?
Well, Candida's been a big issue, like you just said, and I hadn't been able to completely get rid of Candida, and I was doing really good up until I had to take the antibiotic for that infected tooth.
Yeah.
And it got a lot worse, but I ended up getting that Progert that you said to get. And oh my God, that is really working. Fastest I've ever seen anything work.
You know what? Yeah, one of the things that we do with the gut, and we can share that, right, is we want to switch around different bacterias, which we've been doing with you, right? We had you on Restore, closing the tight junctions, changing up different bacteria. Prescript Assist offers these soil bacteria. Progert is actually human strain bacteria. So right now, as a group of practitioners and doctors, we're experimenting with Progert. So that's one of my patients told me about it. Cameron George actually has been on the show. He found it and said, hey, try this. It really helped me. I said, oh, we'll try it with our doctor group. It's kind of where we experiment with everything, right? It's like, does it work? So, I mean, all the gut work that seemed to help, that helped you a lot. So
yes, that definitely helped. The sleeping is still, it's much better. But that's probably been one of my biggest things is insomnia.
Yeah.
And I know you know what I'm talking about. It's brutal. When you don't sleep, you feel like you're going crazy. You really do. And the anxiety that goes with it it's just awful. So that's gotten much better. I still have nights where I don't sleep so great, but I've been monitoring it. And some days I feel like I didn't really sleep, but according to my ring here, it's telling me I did. So, and it's a lot of light sleep and a lot of REM sleep. Still not getting a lot of deep sleep. Still working on it.
Deep sleep are you getting? Just curious.
Sometimes it's 4 minutes. Sometimes it's 26 minutes.
Right.
Last night was, I think, 26 minutes. Sometimes it's 10. One time it was an hour and 9 minutes, which shocked me. So that I know I'm still needing to do work with. And I think the more toxins I get out, the easier it's going to be. It's just continuing to get these toxins out and the parasites. And
when it comes to sleep, we sometimes melatonin works, then it stops. This works, that works. We've done it all. All of us have done it all. But the only thing that really fixes it permanently is as the toxins come out of the brain, the sleep eventually comes back. And it's years, not months, folks. You'll hear me say that all the time, right? Where are you in the brain phase? Or I know where you are, but share with them. You're actually up to a really good dose of a fat soluble binder, ALA and brain DTX. So, how did that process go?
So I'm actually on my 13th brain phase. I've gone through a lot of brain phases, and I actually just took like a 2-week break from it. I'm starting back up tomorrow, and I've been traveling a lot, so I just needed to be able to function. So because sometimes I can't, but sometimes I function better when I'm on the cyto detox. So it's pretty interesting. It goes back and forth. And I'm doing 200 milligrams of ALA 3 times a day when I'm doing that. So I do 10 drops in the morning of cyto in the afternoon 10 drops, and then in the evening 10 drops, along with the ALA. And that, honestly, it's gotten to the point where it really does make me feel better. And but as long as I don't get on the beamer at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so that's going well, and I'm still doing, you know, all the protocols. I love the intermittent fasting and the diet variation. I love the ketogenic diet. Right now, I'm not in ketosis. I had to kind of cut back from it because I'd been in it for so long, and that, that was hard to. And I still find myself getting into ketosis and not trying to.
Because you've done it so long with the diet variation, it makes you so efficient, right? Same thing with me.
Yeah. And I love ketosis. Your brain just feels amazing on ketosis. So, and right now I'm doing, I'm actually I do a smoothie for breakfast, which is usually around 11 o'clock. And then sometimes I'll have a fat bomb or a salad or something for like late lunch. And then I have a normal dinner. But I hadn't really been doing that. I've been doing a lot of 16-hour, 24-hour fasts because I just felt good and I didn't want to eat. So yeah, and I loved when you had me do the, on Mondays it was a 24-hour fast, and on Wednesday it was a 42-hour fast, and then on Friday it was another 24-hour fast. I like that one a lot.
Right.
It's easy. Once you get going, it's easy.
Yeah, that variation, you know, we use that. I like to call it metabolic fitness. So, you know, our mitochondrial fitness, right? Because it stresses the cell. It stresses our mitochondria where we make energy. Bad cells don't adapt. So your mitochondria get more efficient as a fat burner, produce less inflammation. You know, you end up just with more stronger cells. That's why fasting 24 hours, fasting even 36 hours, throwing a feast day in there. We're confusing the body, and the body will adapt with hormone optimization. It will adapt with growth hormone. It will adapt with more sensitive cells to hormones. So you get this hormone optimization when you put those variations in there even weekly. And of course, like myself, seasonally, you're doing it, right? Where we moved in and out of ketosis. Again, every time you leave a diet, we know now that your microbiome changes. Right. So, you know, even seasonally, when we move into ketosis, we're changing our microbiome. Out of ketosis, we're changing our microbiome. That adaptation makes a stronger, more diverse microbiome. Therefore, we get stronger. Our cells get stronger. So hormone optimization, diet variation creates. It creates microbiome diversity. You know, all of it makes us better. And that's what we all notice.
Right. Something I didn't mention too is after I had my amalgams out, which was kind of important because this happened to me, and I'm sure it happens to a lot of people, but I became hyperthyroid, and I lost so much weight. In fact, I thought I was dying because I couldn't gain weight. I just kept losing. I mean, it was like my skin was just hanging off my bones. And all of a sudden it just became hypo. And I did a lot of research on that, and I did find that a lot of times after having amalgams removed, you can become hyperthyroid. Of course, and I wasn't being detoxed properly. Had I been detoxed properly, I probably wouldn't have gone through all that.
Absolutely.
But that was brutal. It was brutal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sometimes I think hyperthyroid is worse than hypo. I don't know.
Yeah, what happens when they come out, what your body, even if this is done perfectly, once they're out, the body starts mobilizing metals. And that mobilization, the mercury starts getting around the thyroid receptors, and it drives autoimmune. Your body looks at that mercury attached to one of the receptors because there's selenium on there, and it pulls the mercury in, and it looks at it as foreign, and guess what? It drives the autoimmune. It starts attacking the thyroid receptors, and that's when you end up hyper, then hypo. Happens all the time. Mercury in thyroid conditions, forget it. It's like, 95% of the time, it's associated.
Yeah.
Well, Meredith, I know you have some questions for Christine as well.
Well, I always do. I'll talk about and just, I think for probably a lot of our viewers and listeners as well, who are kind of watching this and just hearing, all of the challenges you've been through, Christine, they're probably thinking, well, gosh, like, Dr. Pompa, where did you start with a case like this, where there was just so much going on with the implants, with the Lyme? I think you mentioned parasites, Christine. Like, where do you even begin to start with a case like this when you've recognized R1, these, stressors, where, there were many of them? Where do you even start with a case like this to not, go in too hard, to, push too much of a reaction, but also, kind of start to make progress? So where did you start?
So actually, I had started before I met Dr. Pompa. Like I said, I was obsessed with all of his his videos, and I was watching, and I would buy all these different supplements, and I ended up buying all the stuff in the prep phase, not knowing that it was eventually going to be a package. And I didn't really know if I was taking things right, but I would do that, and I got the bind, and I got the Cyto, and I was playing around with it. And I can't remember. I think I had gone through 6 brain phases before I even met Dr. Pompa, or should I say before I hired him as my coach. And let me tell you, it was brutal. I wish I had just hired him right from the get-go, because I really was a mess. And the detoxing, I think I was detoxing too fast, and I didn't really know. So
yeah, Chris, that's a good point. The packages are for people who are relatively healthy, right?
mm-hmm.
When you get to the point where you have these challenges, and you need a coach, man. We all do. People hire coaches to improve their golf game. It's like, how much more important? The dosing is different for everyone. The cycle length is different. The support, the target thing, everything's different, right? And you learn through experience. I know what to do when this is happening. This is what you do. I mean,
yeah.
that's, now you're that way, right? I mean, you're coaching. Why? You learned it. You learned it the hard way.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely know that I needed to take more drainers and, have more Moors and more G-Cell. And I didn't know any better. So I really was feeling the detox brutally, but I knew that I was going to get somewhere, because I knew it was getting, especially to the brain. I mean, I really had some brutal days, but once I came on with Dr. Pompa, it got so much easier, as far as not going overboard with my stuff, and taking a step back and realizing that I had been overdoing it.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, my passion, as you know, is teaching doctors, around the country, practitioners like yourself, to do this, right? Because what we have works. What we have is real. It's upstream. We understand that it's years, not months. Our goal is to teach people the process, and it is different for everybody. But by the time they get through, they learn it. And then that's like you. I mean, my gosh, your life's changing from a physical standpoint for you, but now look at yourself as a practitioner and how equipped you are, from pain to purpose, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I've learned so much from Dr. Pompa, and so many of the other doctors as well. I mean, just being part of this group has just changed my life completely. And I don't know where I'd be if I hadn't found you. I'd be sicker than I was at that point. So, and you have taught me so many things that, you're right. It's like, I know now, okay, I need to do this. I need to do that. And this is what I'm lacking. This is what I need to do less of. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah. Awesome.
When we all learn and grow together too. And I'd love for you to share, Christine, too, like, what are some of the differences in your life now, when, comparing it before to now, with, maybe physical symptoms, but also just kind of emotionally?
So one of the things I had badly was brain fog. I could not, even when I was in school, like grade school was the worst. I had a hard time reading. I had a hard time with comprehending anything. And that just continued through adulthood. And I would say up until about probably 2 months ago, I finally started seeing that clearing. And now it's just I feel like every day is better and better. And when I read something, I can retain it. It used to be so bad that I drove my husband crazy, because I'd read something, I'd be like, oh my God, I got to tell you what I just read. And I'd start to tell him, and then I totally would forget. And I go, I got to go get the book, because I don't remember what I just read. It was really bad. I really thought I was losing my mind. So, and it got so whenever I needed to tell him something, I'd go, oh, I got to tell you something. And he'd be telling me something, and I'd totally interrupt him. Yeah. And he'd look at me and go, well, I'm talking. And I'd say, yeah, but if I don't tell you now, I'm not going to remember. So we just kind of got used to that. Whereas if he was telling me something and I just rudely would interrupt him and say, I got to tell you something. And he knew if I didn't tell him right then, I wouldn't remember. That's how bad it was.
You know how many people have brain fog, you know, and it's literally, it's a brain degenerating. I mean, it's like the only way to fix it is getting the neurotoxins that have bioaccumulated in the brain out. You know, all of us are being exposed to glyphosate. That's the chemical being sprayed on all of our food. Studies are showing it's pushing the metals that we grew up with, the heavy metals, the lead from our mothers, the mercury from our mothers, and then our exposures along the way, it's pushing it deeper into the brain. You know, it's like no wonder we're a world of brain fog. You know, it's years, not months, getting that stuff out. And that's why you say, like, each month it gets better and better and better. Each year, I remember like after like 4 or 5 years thinking, my gosh, I think my memory's better now than I was when I was, you know, in my 20s. Literally, I didn't even know it wasn't working until it started working. That's crazy.
Yes. Yeah. And that's how I am. I feel like I can just remember things now, and I can be more creative, and it's, yeah, that's huge for me. And, you know, and now that the sleep's getting better, I think my brain's even getting more better, you know, it's just like, it's finally waking up or something.
You know, every bit of it plays in, right? I mean, it's like every bit of it plays in. Yeah, usually people have it all backwards. Like, okay, I need to do this to fix my hormones, or this to fix my gut, or this to fix my sleep. No, you get rid of the toxins upstream the right way. This stuff eventually corrects itself. So, well, Christine, thank you so much for sharing. You know, your story is the perfect story for people to understand the importance of going upstream. Without going upstream, you're not going to get well. Without going to the cell, you're not going to get well. So that's our mantra, man. Now you speak it too. You're a life changer too, man. Cellular healing, no doubt. So thanks for being one of our, you know, in our group, and you know, thanks for being now a practitioner on the mission of cellular healing and detox. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pompa. Thanks for healing me. Yes.
Aww. Thank you, Dr. Pompa, and thank you, Christine. Once again, you are a walking testimony, and I know your story is going to inspire everyone who watches and listens. So thank you so much for sharing, for being vulnerable, and I know you're going to impact a lot of people. So, and all of you, thank you so much for listening, for watching. We're gonna list all the products on the transcript page. So if you're curious about any of the products we talked about, they're going to be listed on the page for easy access. So thank you again for listening, for tuning in. Please share this episode with anybody you know who is experiencing some of these challenges, or who might really resonate with this message, who needs to hear it. So please share it. Have an amazing weekend, and we will see you next time. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.